Hello, everyone. My name is Dre Devots. I'm a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'm going to be your host for today's workshop. Today, we're joined by my good friend, Mike Stratton. Mike, how's it going today?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. All right. For today's workshop, Mike's going to be showing us how to use to how to how we can report on part calls. Sorry about that. All right, we're going to start off today with a quick overview of our company and what we do. And then Mike's going to show us how to report on those part calls. We're going to pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel on the bottom right hand of the screen. And after Q&A, we're going to reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. All right, Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube call analytics, customizable dashboards, widgets, remote phone control, change management, and DID management. But today we're going to be focusing on identifying those part calls and how to report on them. Also for you, for those of you looking for a more hands-off Verify experience, Verify does offer a managed consulting service. This is a service that provides a dedicated Verify SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users a completely hands-off experience. We're an extension of your organization. Upgrades, one-on-one training, reports, and dashboard building, your dedicated Verify systems engineer has you covered. Your SE is engaged with your team on a one-on-one basis to provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance. So the only thing you have to do is call us. If you want any additional information on our ECS service offering, feel free to reach out to your account manager. We'll be happy to see if ECS is right for you. With that said, let me kick the ball over to Mike and he can get going on our presentation of the day.
Okay. Thank you, Dre. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today. So yeah, like Dre said, we're going over part calls, and this is on the CUCM side. We're not looking at Cube or CCX. I'll cover how Cisco's. I'll go over really how what Cisco says we should be seeing in the CDR. I have a few examples ready to go, and I'll cover some reports and kind of show you how you can build reports to look at part calls within the Verify software. So first, let me kind of go over what a part call is. So according to Cisco, the call part feature allows you to place a call on hold so that it can be retrieved from another phone within the unified communications manager environment or system. For example, you can park a call and then retrieve the call from another office or like from a conference room. If you're on an active call, you park the call and then it goes to a call park extension once you press the park soft key. Another phone within your system can then dial the park call extension to retrieve the call. You can define either like a single directory number or a range of directory numbers to use as the call park extensions. Only one call can be parked at each extension at a time. Also worth noting, because it will come up, call park monitoring. It's an optional call park feature where the CUCM will monitor the status of a park call. There's a timer. I believe the default is 60 seconds. Once that timer expires, the call is either forwarded to a pre-assigned number, it can be sent to voicemail, or it can be returned to the DN or the number that parked the call. So it's not always applied, but it can be applied to phone lines and to hunt pilots as well. So when the call is picked up, Cisco calls it the call park pickup. If the timer expires and it goes back to the called party, this is called a call park reversion. So we will see the reversions in the CDR as well. So I have a data export here with some sample data. I'm going to jump. This is the right report. I'm going to jump to the Creo at the Grave section because I can see it. Actually, let me make this a little bigger. If you can't see this, go ahead, let us know, and I can try to fit more of it on the screen. I'm going to, okay, so sequence 12. 12, 13, they're all kind of the same. So with call park, every time a call is parked, it's going to generate two different records in the data. So that's why we're looking at it from cradle to grave. Think of it like when a call is transferred. So these examples here, I mean, if a call is transferred before it gets parked, you could see three, four, five, different call legs in the cradle to grave. These ones are just simple. They come in, they're parked, and then these ones are eventually picked up. Um, so when a call is parked, um, like I said, it generates two different call records. The first record is the it contains all of, like the call up to the part where the call is parked. So so when the call is parked, it generates a call record. The what you're going to see the call, which just says the call is split. Same thing is like when a call is transferred. We see this in the cause codes here. So the cause codes tell us how each leg ends. This leg ended because the call was split, which just means the call ended kind of, and there's another call leg that's going to happen down the road. So this doesn't mean the call is parked, because again, transfers can be also called call split, but you will see that the call is split when it's parked. For the first leg, when the call is parked, the originating termination behalf of and the terminating termination behalf of both of these fields will be set to call park. In the CDR, Cisco gives us a number. In this case, I believe the number is 3, and then we translate it to the proper terminology using Cisco's documentation. So really, that's all that stands out when the call is parked. So for this first leg here, the call originated on the 25th at 8 o'clock in the morning. This is the caller ID. So the 812 number, they called in. The call comes in on the gateway. It goes to the 615 number. Now, I'm pretty sure this is a Hunt Pilot number. And then it redirects to extension 6074. Now, this doesn't mean the call is parked. It just means the call came in. 6074 answered the call. They spoke with the person for 24 seconds, and then they parked the call. We have here the redirection says native call queuing. It was redirected when no agent was logged in. So what I'm assuming happened is they called in, hit the Hunt Pilot. No one was logged into the Hunt Pilot, so it just redirects to this extension where they spoke with the person, and then whatever happened, they ended up parking the call. So all that stands out from this just being a regular inbound call. You have the call termination on behalf of codes or both call park. So if you want to see how many calls are being parked, you can queue off of these two values here. So I built a basic sample report here. Let me use my call report, my generic report here. So for the first search set, if we're looking at how many calls were parked, here's my name and my search set. I'm just going to set the terminating call termination on behalf of the call park, and I'm also going to select the criteria for originating call termination on behalf of, set them both the call park, and because I have two criteria selected, I'm going to make sure that the match all criteria option is toggled. And so in my final report, let me drag it over, make it a little bit bigger. We'll see here not that big. We'll see, my first search set is the parked call count. I have 316 total call records, or rows of data that were parked, for a total call sequence count of 281 unique calls. The reason why these two values are different is because within the sample data, there were some calls that were parked more than once. So like the call would be parked, then picked up, and then the person would then park the call again, put the caller on hold, and this would go back maybe 2 or 3 different times. So so a total of 281 calls or callers that were parked within the CDR. So then next we have, there's a couple different things that could happen. So once the call is parked, the call can be picked up by another phone or the same phone, or the timer could expire. So in these samples here, these calls are all picked up. So when the call is parked, like I said, the call gets split, and then when the parked call is retrieved, so what happens is the user who's answering the call or retrieving the call goes off hook, and they dial the park code. And then this joins them with the person who's been already placed on hold or who's been parked. Because the user who's dialing is picking up the call, the system treats them as the originator of the call. So where this call here looks like an inbound call because it's coming in or it starts on the gateway and goes to a phone, this call is flipped because this is the person who is picking up the call or retrieving the parked call. So it starts with their device, and then it goes out to the number that was the person that was, or the number that was parked. So the calling party number in this case, in the retrieved record, is going to be the person who retrieved the call, not the person who was parked. So in this example, it just so happens that the person who parked the call is the person who retrieved it. But like you'll see in this below this call record here, extension 6014, they're the ones who parked the call, and then 6044 retrieved the call. So 6074 is retrieving the call. This is the number that was retrieved. So you'll see the caller ID from the first leg in the original call party number and the final call party number fields. And then the last redirect DN field here, the 7900, contains the park code. So this was the code or the extension that was dialed by 6074 to retrieve the call. So this is another great field if you want to see, what extension, if you have certain extensions for certain locations or certain departments, you can identify, you can filter or group on these values to see, how many calls are being picked up or retrieved from each number. And then moving down a little bit more, to identify that the call was picked up, you'll see under the last redirect reason, the value of call park pickup, and then you also see on the last redirect on behalf of field that the call it was a call park. So to kind of go over the entire call from start to finish, at 8 o'clock, this caller, they called in, came in on a gateway, it redirected from the hunt pallet to 6074. They parked the call, and then this leg ends, and then the next leg picks up when it picks up. So this leg ended at 8:54, 8:08 and 54 seconds. 4 seconds later, 6074, they dial 7900 to retrieve the call. They're connected with the caller here, and they speak to them for 1 minute and 6 seconds before the call ends. So that's the call start to finish. What we're missing in this data, and what Cisco does not provide, is the time while the person, so in this case, this person here, while they were parked. So this call was only parked for 4 seconds, but we don't receive a record that contains that time. So like you see, this call ends at 8:08 and 54 seconds. The next call begins at 8:08 and 58 seconds. So we can't really run a report on a record to identify how long the person was on hold for, because that record just never exists. It's not that there's something wrong or we can fix something. It's just Cisco does not have logic to to create a record to push to us with that information, and that will come into play in a couple of minutes here. So we have the call park pickup. So going back to my reports, if I created a second search set, so like here, I also want to see in the same report how many calls or how many park calls were picked up. I've built the report then to say I want to see when the last redirect reason is call park pickup and the last redirect on behalf of is call park. So looking at that, I have 316 calls that were parked, 311 calls were picked up. Looking at the sequence count, 281 unique sequences were parked, and then 278 were also picked up. The third option, or the third one, is call park reversion. In this sample data, I do not have a call that was with that example of call reversion, but I do have it in a separate set of data. So let me bring this one over. So this would occur if if that timer is reached and the call manager then sends the call back to where it came from, or to the number that put it on hold or parked the call. So Cisco's documentation, what they say for call park reversion. So when a call is parked and not picked up, the timer expires and then it redirects the call back to the called party. In this case, we're still getting two different call records. The first record is exactly the same. So we can see 3848 dialed 8491. They talked for 1 minute and 32 seconds, and then the call was parked. So this is normal. This is standard. The call was parked. We know that nothing is changing here. But on the second leg is when the reversion occurs, and then the record is a little bit different from when the call was retrieved. So when the timer expires, and if the call is being redirected back to the called party, the originating termination on behalf of and the last redirect on behalf of, so these two columns right here, these two fields are both set to call park. And then the The last redirect reason, which is this column right here, is then tagged as call park reversion. So what really stands out for this record is where you see the last redirect reason as call park reversion. Um, and then we have, in this case, when the call reverts back, we have 8491 dialing 3848. So in this case, just to confirm, so you have 8491 is dialing 3848. 3848 was the extension that actually parked the call. So in this case, it was the caller who parked the call, and they're just retrieving. So I have a second example here. Let me close out this guy right here from a different set of data. Same exact scenario. Call was parked, and then there was a call park reversion. So same idea. Caller comes in, 7936 comes into, or they dial this number. So they're dialing out and they're dialing somebody. They talk for 2 minutes and 44 seconds, and then they park the call. So when the caller is sent back, or when the person who was parked is sent back to the person who did the parking, we have the caller ID here. So they're pushed back to 7936. We get call park reversion, call park and call park, and then we have the duration of 48 minutes and 31 seconds. So we can see that the call was reversioned, and then it goes back to the caller. So to get the reversion into like a parked call report for option 3, we just highlight where the original called party redirect reason is call park, and the last redirect reason is call park reversion. So we've covered 3 options in the report. So if I go back to the top here, not this one, we can see 316 calls, or more so 281 unique calls. 278 were picked up, leaving us with 3 that weren't, and then 0 calls were fall into the call park reversion category. So we're missing 3 calls, and so the assumption is, well, what about if the caller, or the question is, what if the caller hangs up while on hold? And we can't, Cisco doesn't give us that record. Like I said before, that middle kind of call leg where there could be that time where the caller spent on hold, that would be where the call could be abandoned while in the queue. So if I go back to call sequence 12 here, so if this caller here, this number here, if this caller was to hang up while on hold, they would be hanging up after this call ended, because this call ends once the call is parked. So, and then they're also hanging up before the call is retrieved or picked up. So if there was a middle leg here, we could see then say, hey, yeah, this call was abandoned, because we could have keyed off of the the cause codes like we do with normal abandoned calls and say, oh yeah, this call had normal call clearing, so we can tell it was abandoned and not while on hold. So Cisco just does not provide a record that contains that moment in time. So we can't really give you like a search set to give you like a count in a report. But if you're looking on like a call by call basis, we should be able to kind of identify it or pull from the data. So if I go back and I've highlighted the record, I went through all these calls to find one that looked like it was abandoned. So let me go to this record here. So this record, normal call record, it was parked. So this caller here, the 515 number, they called in, comes in the gateway, hits the Hunt Pilot, redirects like we're seeing before. They talk for 17 seconds. We get the the native call queuing, which is fine, and that's expected in this data. And then we see the call was parked. So this is that first leg. The call was parked, and then when looking at the cradle to grave, if the call was retrieved, or even if the call, there was reversion back to where the call came from, or the person who parked the call, we would expect to see a second leg here. And because there's nothing associated with this call, we can assume that the call ended either when the call was parked or shortly after the call was parked, when the person was on hold, because it never got to the point where someone picked up the call. So we can't say for 100% certainty that the call was abandoned. There could have been some sort of like issue while the call was parked and it was dropped. All we can really say is, hey, in this case, because there's not a second leg, then the call was just dropped and it never was retrieved or it never made it back to somebody else, or it never went anywhere else. So unfortunately, Cisco just doesn't give us that data to say if the call is abandoned. It'd be a great metric to report on. But like on a call by call scenario, we can take the cradle to grave data and kind of assume whether or not if the call was ever retrieved, or if it went back to who put it on hold. So okay, going back to the report, this one I think we're done with. So yeah, it's a great report to see, to see what calls are being parked. Kind of gives you an overview, just a basic overview of how many calls are being parked, picked up, or how many times you're running into a call park reversion. And then going back to this, a couple other reports, a couple quick samples. Like in that one customer's data, we're seeing all the calls come into the Hunt Pilot. Basic report here looking at just how many calls were being parked based upon, based upon which Hunt Pilot it hit. So I'm looking at that one Hunt Pilot here, seeing how many calls weren't being answered at the Hunt Pilot and then were being parked later. So same thing, we're looking for the calls were being parked, and then we're also just filtering on the Hunt Pilot number here, and we can have a quick report just looking at there were 11 calls that hit the Hunt Pilot that were parked. And then we have the date, we can see the detail here. Calls come in, hit the Hunt Pilot, hit the extension, and then they're parked. So, if you want to, further filter your parked calls based upon an extension, a Hunt Pilot, a department, we can do that and then add that, just add that to your criteria, as long as you're keeping, as long as you're still looking for, the same terminating call, or the terminating call termination on behalf of, and the originating call termination on behalf of as well. Another quick sample report. Looking for like just the calls that were picked up. So here, you drag this guy over and get rid of this one. So here's a nice. So the last report was looking at the first leg, looking at the calls that were parked. This report is looking at the second leg, looking at the call pickups. So here, go back, and so here, we're looking for that second leg with the see the calls are picked up. So we build our criteria on the last redirect reason being call pickup, and then the last redirect on behalf of being call park. So this will identify the second leg where the call is being picked up. We have 311 calls, 278 unique calls, and then we're taking, or I use the grouping statistics, the group on the last redirect DN, so we can show or identify, we can group on the call park number, or the number that was dialed to pick up the call. So we can see, 7900, there's 229 calls, sequence count, and then we can see maybe if we can also add on other metrics, like how many of those calls that were picked up were then eventually transferred. And so you can see how many of those calls were transferred, and then keep digging into the data. Here was the same idea, just breaking it down by how many calls per hour, and then a quick chart that shows you how many calls were picked up per hour of the day. Okay, and that really, in a nutshell, I know we're running out of time. We have a little time for Q&A. That kind of covers it. There's not a lot to call park, but digging through Cisco documentation, we can see, to kind of recap, we do get two records per each, or when the call is parked, we get two records. One contains the data from when the call was parked, and the second record tells us whether the call, there was call reversion, or if the call was picked up by another phone. And so the one thing we don't get is that, that kind of middle data for when the call was put on hold. But that data is there, and if you definitely want to run reports on park calls, it's a good way to do so. So Dre, I will punt it back to you for some Q&A.
Yeah, we had a question from Matt here. Is any way you could tell if the call was parked using normal call park as opposed to directed call park?
Directed call park, I think so. I've seen, and I didn't have any sample data that kind of covered this, but when going through the different search sets, we do see there's a termination on behalf of called directed call park. So so if you are using directed call park in your environment, I would take a look at the termination on behalf of the terminating and the originating, and just throw in a quick search for directed call park. to see if you are getting calls with directed call park instead of call park.
Nice, nice. Okay. Let's see. I don't think right now there's no other questions. We'll give them a couple more seconds if anybody wants to ask a question. Oh, just get. Diana asks, can you please provide the search criteria for this report? I would like to create this report for one of my locations. Yeah, Diana, I think she could just take a screenshot of this
I can
search
send
criteria.
I can send her the JSON file. Diana, which report were you looking for? The main one with all the call parks, or are you looking for one like I've got the pickup one, I've got the generic one. This was like
She
the
sent
main one.
the main one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Trey, take down her name, and then I'll send her a copy of the JSON file once we're done.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, I got you. All right, I'm gonna grab the ball back from you. All right. Thank you everybody for your questions. Just want to mention our user community, Planet Verify, where you can connect with your peers and expand your knowledge of all things Verify. And also, we do have our EFT 13.0 that is now available. So if you're interested in taking advantage of any of the new features available, and just to name a few, we got database archiving, UCCX audible alerting, Cube event reports, and more. Head over to planet.verify.com and make sure you register. If you've already registered for the 13.0 beta, please head over to Planet to schedule time to get your system upgraded. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, the winner of this week's workshop gift card is Matt Riddell. Congratulations, Matt. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly and get you that Amazon gift card over. All right, don't forget to join us next week where Jim and Matt are going to walk you through how to change report colors and add your custom logos. Want to thank everybody for taking the time and joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.